before you finish. This will tell you how much. Rabbi, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good to see all of you. So tonight I would like to discuss the topic of Birchas Hatorah, some of the halachas and understanding of Birchas Hatorah. I chose to speak about this now for a number of reasons. First of all, it's a topic which I think is of extreme importance. It's something which is nogay on a daily basis, every single day of the year. And there are quite a few halachas, quite a few areas which are nogea. Not all of them, perhaps are nogea every single day, but quite a few of them. We'll see what we get to. And so I enjoyed speaking about this topic. In fact, I gave a share on this topic on Friday night, shortly after I came here. I know some of you might have been there, but hopefully we'll cover some other topics in either case. But in addition, Baruch Hashem, with the Siyam HaShas, the global Siyam HaShas in New Jersey, and the local Siyam HaShas in this community and many communities, and many individuals being Messiah, there's been, Baruch Hashem, a big increase, a big insurgence in Chashivas Hatorah, in Limud Hatorah, in understanding the importance of Torah, and people being Kovei Itim Torah and joining new shiurim or new chavrus shavs, etc. So I think it was a natural time to discuss about Birchas Hatorah, which is the prerequisite, so to speak, of the step before you sit down to the Limud Hatorah. There has to be the Birchas Hatorah. So that's what I want to talk about now. Okay, so now just to begin with, I would like to read the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch. The halachas of Birchas Hatorah are primarily in Orach Chaim Siman Mem Zayin. And the lashon of the Mechaber Sif Aleph is Birkas Hatorah Tzarich Lizahar Ba Ma'od. One has to be very careful with Birkas Hatorah. So what does that mean, to be very careful? So the Mishnah Berurah has two beiurim, two explanations of what does it mean to be Zahir Ma'od, very careful about Birkas Hatorah. One is, he says, not to learn until you recite Birkas Hatorah, meaning you're supposed to do a mitzvah which has a bracha. Many mitzvahs say have a bracha, and you are supposed to be careful to say the bracha first. Of course, there are times that one can't say a bracha on a mitzvah for various reasons, either because it's a suffix, whether he's chayiv in the mitzvah, or many other reasons. And then, of course, he's supposed to do the mitzvah anyway if he's not going to have an opportunity to make the bracha. So there's no isser to do a mitzvah without a bracha. But if the bracha can't be said, on the other hand, one is not supposed to create a situation where you can't say the bracha. For example, there's a famous Mishnah that says, Aram lo yitram, one who is unclad, not wearing clothing, should not be mafresh truma. Why? Because being mafresh truma requires a bracha. It's not okay right nowadays, the bracha, but in the time when we knew exactly who the Kohanim are, and the Kohanim Atar, etc., the hafresh truma was done with a bracha, and I'm just hesitating a little because I honestly don't know. Perhaps it is done. I mean, when the food we get, any of us are eating there itself, by the time the food comes to our hands, it's already probably truma's been taken already. We're doing it misafik, etc. I wonder on some level, because giving it to the Kohen is not ma'akev the mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of Rosh and there's a separate inyan to give it to the Kohen. So we just want to take a step back on that. But in any case, whether it's nogay now or not, but the Mishnah says Aram lo yitram. The Mishnah says that one who is unclad should not be mafresh truma because he will not be able to recite the bracha. The person is not wearing clothing, the erev is not covered, and there's no hefsek between the erev and the leiv and the erev, can't recite a bracha. So he should not take truma. Somebody else should take truma, or he should first get dressed so that he can take truma. So Aram lo yitram, because he can't make a bracha. So a mitzvah that has a bracha, one is supposed to be nizar to recite the bracha first in all situations. But by Torah, it's more than that. By Torah, there's even a shaila, and we'll talk about that in a moment. There's a shem whether a person is allowed to learn without saying Birchas Hatorah. Are you even allowed to do it? Now, Birchas Hatorah is more than just the Birchas HaMitzvah. And the question is a person allowed? We know by food, a person is not allowed to eat without making a bracha, unless if there are circumstances where he can't make a bracha. A person, Rahman is an onan, where he lost their close relative and it's before the kvura, so he's pater, he's not supposed to make bracha, so then of course he can eat without making a bracha. But a person that has there's discussion in the also in the beginning of Birchas about towards the beginning of Birchas about a Balkari in the time when Tfilas Ezra was noheg and was an obligation. So a person who was Tommy to miscarry would have to become tahar before he can make a bracha, and if he wasn't able to, so then this discussion, what should he do, especially about Birchas Hamazon. But when it comes to Birchas Hanenin, when it comes to food, a person is not allowed to eat generally without making a bracha. So here, that's a discussion about Birchas Hatorah. Okay, so putting that aside for a second, so the first reason is, the first idea is being Zahir Ma'od is not to learn Ad Shivarach. And the second idea, says the Mishnah Berurah, of being Zahir Ma'od is Levarich Osa Besimcha Gedola, to recite Birchas Hatorah with great joy, with jubilation, with happiness. That means Tzarich Lizar Ba Ma'od, be very careful in how you do it. Make sure to perform the mitzvah of reciting Birchas Hatorah in the best ofen, with the, as we said, with great simcha. And the Mishnah Berurah goes on to explain, because that shows, that indicates, that proves that Torah is very chashuv, it's very meaningful, it's very important in the person's eyes, and it's not like other chachmos. And he goes on to discuss about the time of the Churban, when it says that one of the reasons for the Churban was that they were not machshav, they had been al-ozmas Torasi, they had abandoned Torah, even though they were learning Torah, but they weren't reciting Birchas Hatorah because they didn't have the proper chashivas Hatorah. So one is being nizar ma'od. So how are you nizar ma'od? You nizar ma'od by working on yourself, by increasing your appreciation, how much you value Torah, how much you understand how critical it is to our very existence, how important a part it is of every day of our life, and how important a part of it is of the fabric of Klal Yisrael. And there is no Klal Yisrael without Liman Torah. So the more a person understands that and is contemplates that, and is ma'ayin, thinks about it and integrates it and inculcates it into his being, the more he will be able to recite Birchas Hatorah with great simcha. And that is go. So Lizar Ba'amo, so that doesn't come through you. The first thing is just to push it in. Be careful. Follow the halacha. Don't learn before you say Birchas. Make sure to say Birchas Hatorah first before learning. That's a simple halacha. The second thing requires a little bit more person to work on himself. Make sure to do it b'simcha. So that's something you have to that needs to be developed. And even if a person's already doing it b'simcha, so then he can go to the next madrega and the next madrega, etc. Okay, now going back to the first idea, not learning before. So not learning before means that when you're able to say Birchas Hatorah, you're definitely chayiv Birchas Hatorah. You woke up in the morning, you slept during the night, you're definitely chayiv Birchas Hatorah now before you learn. So that's point number one. So don't learn before saying Birchas Hatorah. Make sure to say Birchas Hatorah first. And now we'll talk maybe a little bit later. What does "don't learn" mean? Does that mean you can't even think in learning, or does that just mean does it mean you can't listen to a tape or a recording of learning, or does this merely mean you can't learn Divrei Torah, articulate Divrei Torah? Well, perhaps we'll get to that. But what I want to discuss now is, let's say a person it's not a situation where you are vadai, where you're definitely chayiv in the mitzvah. Let's say you have a safek, you're not sure if you're chayiv in the mitzvah. For example, one simple example is a person who did not sleep at night, whether it's Shavuos night or any other night in the year. He was up all night, whether he was up all night learning or was up all night involved with whatever it might be. If he did not sleep at night, then there's a suffix, because there's a question in halacha: what is it that creates a new chiyuv of Birchas Hatorah? That is to say, as follows: when you say Birchas Hatorah in the morning, it lasts through the whole day. It lasts even if you're not learning steadily, and maybe even if you're not learning at all. As long as right after the brachas you said some divrei Torah, you said, we have in the Siddur, Yivarech Hashem Yishmerecha, we have a few psukim, we have a Mishnah, we have a Brisa, to get in a little bit of each. But the idea is that we're saying that in order that the bracha should be chal, has to be chal on something. Once it's chal, the brachas are valid. You're yotzi of the bracha. Then even if you're mafsik, the bracha continues. If you're mafsik before, it's a very big shaila. If you're mafsik bedibor or otherwise before doing any learning after Birchas Hatorah, it's not at all pashit. The more pashit is that you would have to repeat Birchas Hatorah. But once you've said even a small amount of learning, then at that point the bracha is chal, and it will continue throughout the day. Even if you put yourself in situations where you can't learn, even when you go to the Beis HaKisei, or you're in the Beis HaMerchatz, and you can't learn. Or if you lie down, let's say you sleep a Shinas Aroi. Again, hopefully we'll talk about a little bit more about sleeping during the day. But a Shinas Aroi, which means not just let's call it a cat nap. You certainly just put your head down on the table to refresh yourself for 10 minutes during your lunch break or whatever it is. Then you certainly do not have to say Birchas Hatorah when you get up and want to continue learning. So when do you have to repeat Birchas Hatorah? Is it only if you went to sleep at night? That's one sheet. The one sheet is that you slept at night. You slept a Shinas Keva at night, then, and maybe during the day, but certainly at night, then you for sure have to say Birchas Hatorah again when you slept the Shinas Keva at night. The question is, let's say the night simply passed and it's a new day, but you didn't sleep. That's the shayla, and really the shayla is both ways. Let's say you slept a Shinas Keva during the day. You lie down during the day and you took a long nap. You might have slept an hour or two. So is that Machai Birchas Hatorah because he slept the Shinas Keva, but it's during the day? Or is the night passes and he didn't sleep, is that Machai? Or do you need both? I mean, which is it? Really, the question is not so much do you need both, but which is it that's Machai Birchas Hatorah? So if you're up all night, then you have a suffix in the morning. That's why Shuas morning, we typically have somebody who did sleep during the night, at least part of the night, go in front of the shul and recite Birchas Hatorah for everybody who's there who was up all night. So now, in that situation, though, let's say you don't have someone to make. You were up and it's not Shuas night, so you don't have anyone to make the brachas for you. Actually, I mean, if it's not Shuas night, if you wait around, many people coming to the shul maybe could do it for you. What I mean is, then it's not being done in a formal manner. They're not sending somebody up to make Birchas Hatorah out loud. And let's say there is nobody around. Maybe you're not in shul. Maybe a person in Rahman had to spend the night in the hospital with a relative who was ill or something like that, and he was up all night, and now it's the morning, and there is nobody around to say Birchas Hatorah for him. Or even in the case of the Shuas night, the person who's saying Birchas Hatorah is probably not doing it at the crack of dawn. He's not doing it right away at Omid HaShachar. So what happens when it is Omid HaShachar? Could you continue learning even though now it's already morning? So you might be chayv in Birchas Hatorah already, and nobody's saying it yet. They're not saying it for another half hour or so. So what is it? So most of the poskim or gedolim who I've seen who've expressed a day on this say that you are allowed to learn. When you're unable to say Birchas Hatorah, it's not asur to learn. What it means in the Mishnah Berurah is be very careful not to learn to make the bracha. It means when you're able to make the bracha, there's no shayla. You can make the bracha, so be careful. Don't learn one word without saying Birchas Hatorah first. But when you can't say Birchas Hatorah because of a suffix, and which you're hopefully going to alleviate soon, and we'll talk about that. But meanwhile, you're in a suffix which you can't alleviate. You're allowed to learn. The Chazon Ish says like this. It's brought from the Chazon Ish in a couple of svarim that he said you're allowed to learn. Rosh Shlomo Auerbach passes this way as well. There's a tshuva from Rabbi Yashiv. In the Kovis Tshuvas, he also says it's brought from Chaim Brisker. Many gedolim is brought that if you can't say Birchas Hatorah, you're allowed to learn anyway. On the other hand, it is brought in the name of Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank. Rav Shlomo Zalman quotes from Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank that he held otherwise. He held it's asur to learn. It's asur to learn when you're able to make Birchas Hatorah. You have to somehow alleviate your suffix. You have to get out of the suffix. Otherwise, it's asur to learn in the meantime. But derech chal, we assume like the majority opinions, at least the majority of from amongst those that I quoted, that you're allowed to learn in the meantime. Now, so how would you alleviate the suffix? So the Mishnah Berurah discusses that perhaps when you have a suffix, you should just be allowed to go ahead and say Birchas Hatorah. And what would that be totally on? So the Mishnah Berurah is totally basically on the nekuda, on the point of whether or not the mitzvah or the chiyuv Birchas Hatorah is a chiyuv d'oraisa. Is it a chiyuv in Hatorah or a chiyuv d'Rabbanan? Because we know most brachos, like Birchas HaNen and Birchas HaMitzvahs, for the most part, are midrabbanan. And if you have a suffix, are you chayiv to make a bracha or not? You don't make the bracha. You're being tovel a keli, which you asked the Rav, do I have to be tovel this keli? And he said it's a suffix, but go ahead anyway. Maybe it's a question of its origin. Was it manufactured by a goy, or was it in non-Jewish hands, or was it always in Jewish hands? So it's a suffix. Maybe it's a material which is questionable. Does this material require tefillas kelim, or does it not? So the Rav says, be tovel, but don't make a bracha. By the way, just very quickly, an eitzah for that case of tefillas kelim is try to get, or a good idea is try to get another keli, which for sure needs a bracha, and tovel it together. Rather than, like I spoke about before, it's better not to do something without a bracha if you can can avoid it. Rather than just being told without a bracha, see, maybe you could find a keli. Maybe your neighbor has a keli which he needs toveling, and you'll volunteer to tovel for him. I'll take it to the mikveh for you, and I'll be tovel. I'll make a bracha. I'll do it b'shlichus for you, and I'll make a bracha on that, and I can make it in this way. I can be tovel mine under the same bracha. But if you can't, you do it anyway. Or if you have a suffix, you're being mafresh challah from a dough, which is a shear, a suffix shear. It's a suffix whether it meets the minimum shear which requires a fresh challah or not. So you mafresh challah without a bracha. Or many other cases where a person has a suffix, whether he's chayiv in a mitzvah, or he has a suffix if he perhaps made the bracha. He says somebody is chayiv in the bracha. He's not sure about certain cases with his tzitzis. He made a bracha on tzitzis, and now there's a shaila whether he needs to repeat the bracha. Perhaps he took the tzitzis off for a certain amount of time. He took his talis off for a certain amount of time, but it's an in-between amount of time where it's not vaday a hesach hadas that requires new bracha, but it's a suffix. So if you have no way of alleviating it, you just do it without the bracha. Suffix bracha l'hakal. But by a bracha that's deraisa, we don't say that. What's an example? One of the few examples, Birchas hamazon. If you ate and you v'chalta v'savata, you were satiated, so you have a chiyuv min Hatorah, at least for a man. For a woman, he holds the rabbanan. For a man, though, benching is deraisa if you're a soveya. So then we would say, if I'm not sure if I benched or not, then we would say we don't say savi brachas l'kula. Sure, it's better to alleviate that too by eating another kazayas, and then you're sure you have to bench. But if you can't, we're not so quick to say savi brachas l'kula. I'd rather would be more note to say no. Savi you have to bench because it's something on deraisa. So if Birchas Hatorah is deraisa, then we would say also if you have a suffix whether you chayiv to say Birchas Hatorah. For example, you're not sure. You can't. Sometimes a person wakes up in the morning and there's a little fashlafen still. And I guess I just speak for myself. And he normally says Birchas Hatorah after he relieves himself, comes out, washes his hands, says Asher Yatzor kind of Sham, and then says Birchas Hatorah. That's a good way to do it. And this morning he's not sure. Unfortunately, his head's still a little cloudy, and he's not sure whether he said Birchas Hatorah or not. Maybe not a second later, but 10 minutes later, he's saying, "I know I said all kind of Shama. I can't remember saying Birchas Hatorah." And so a case like that, let's say a case there, so he's not sure what he said. So if it's a din deraisa, the chiyuv deraisa, and you have nobody else to be motzi you, then you'd have to say it. But if it's a chiyuv derabanan, then we say safi brachas lahakal. So the Mishnah has that discussion right at the beginning in Mem Zayin Sifka and Aleph. He's first noted that you should make a bracha. He suggests perhaps you should only say one bracha though. The second bracha, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin. Excuse me, we know that. We just go through briefly. Birchas Hatorah consists of two brachos. The first one is Asher Kedishanu. Thank you very much. Asher Kedishanu. So Sabbat Tzivanu Lasuk with Divrei Torah. That's the nusach. At least we say in nusach Ashkenaz. Others say Al Divrei Torah, but we say nusach Ashkenaz says Lasuk with Divrei Torah, and it goes on with the Harev Nashem Elokeinu, Divrei Torah, etc. Ends with Baruch Atah Hashem Amalami Torah La'amo Yisrael. That whole section is a suffix in halacha. Is that one bracha by itself, or is that two brachas? So we treat it as one bracha, and it says we don't say amen. If the lasuk b'divrei sarah, if you hear somebody else saying that bracha, you would not answer amen. You let him continue till he finishes hamalame tar lama yisrael. Then you say amen. And then we have the other bracha, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'nasan t'araso baruch Hashem nosen Hatorah, and that is called the ma'ula sheba brachas. That the Gemara refers to that as the choicest bracha. That's the higher one, the more chashuv bracha of Birchas Hatorah. And so the Mishnah Berurah suggests that in the case of a suffix, perhaps you should only say that one, only say that bracha, and not say the first one. Then towards the end of the Sivkatan, he's a little mesupik that maybe you shouldn't say it all together because he brings others that say it's only the Rabbanan, only a Chiv the Rabbanan. So the best thing is always to get someone else to be motzi you. So we were discussing what do you do if you have a suffix. So one possibility in the Mishnah Berurah is that even if you have a suffix and you can't alleviate it, say it yourself. Say Asher Baruch Banu. But the Mishnah Berurah is not so comfortable with that. But perhaps a better eitzah is the following. It is mefurish in Shulchan Aruch in the Siman in Sif Zayin, where it says Birchas Avas Olam Puteres Birchas Hatorah Im Lamad Miyad Bli Hefsek. Avas Olam is referring to Nusach Sfard. Nusach Sfard in the morning. The last bracha they say before Kriya Shema is Avas Olam. Those who daven Ashkenaz we say Ahava Rabbah. Either one of those is considered a form of Birchas Hatorah. We ask the Kadosh Baruch Hu in that bracha to give us the ability to lulmod, lulamed, etc. etc. So that is you are Yotzei Birchas Hatorah by saying that bracha, and therefore, if one did not say Birchas Hatorah before he davened, he could be Yotzi by saying that. So let's go back to the case of the person who's Mesupik. He's not sure if he said Birchas Hatorah or not. And he's in a place, he's davening by himself, he's not in a shul where he could wait for somebody to walk in and say, excuse me, did you say Birchas Hatorah? You didn't, great, could you be Motzi me? He can't do that, nobody around. He's got to alleviate the problem himself. So the idea would be, when he davens, and he gets up to that bracha, have in mind the farish to be Yotzi. Or let's say a case where he is davening in shul, and he could have asked somebody else, but it didn't dawn on him, he didn't realize till after he started davening, or I should say more clearly, he started already Birchas Kriyashma. He's already past Baruch Hu, or past, he's into Yotzer or etc. Because earlier than that, if he's only in the middle of Psukkah de Zimra, you realize, I didn't say Birchas Hatorah. Not a suffix, I'm sure. I didn't say Birchas Hatorah this morning. I meant to do it, then I got distracted. You could stop and say it right there. Stop and say it right there, in the middle of Psukkah de Zimra. But if you started Birchas Kriyashma, then you don't stop anymore. You when you get to Avarabba, have in mind Behedya, Beferish. If you didn't have in mind, and it dawns on you, it only occurs to you after davening that you didn't say Birchas Hatorah, but you've already said Avarabba, that's a suffix. Pashtus is the Mishulchan Aruch is mashma yotzei. Shulchan says Birchas Havarabba poteres Birchas Hatorah im lamad miyad b'lei hefsek, as long as you learn immediately afterwards, as we'll address in a moment also. But he doesn't say anything about kavanah. It sounds like with or without kavanah. That is Birchas. It's naturally Birchas Hatorah. In fact, the Bir Halacha in Siman Nun Beis has a tzad, a suffix to say perhaps you can't even not be Yosei if you want to. Even though normally if I do a mitzvah and have in mind, I do a Maisa mitzvah, I have in mind, I don't want to be Yosei, but I don't want to be Yosei for whatever reason. I'm doing this right now, I don't want to be Yosei the mitzvah right now. But it'll work. Your negative kavanah works. But here the Mishnah is Mesupik because Avarabba is inherently a form of Birchas Hatorah on Kriyashma. So perhaps it's not shaykh to split it and be Yotzei the aspect of Birchas Hatorah in Avarabba Legabi Kriyashma and not be Yotzei the other aspect. Mishnah is Mesupik, as in Tzarchi and Gadol. The Pri Megadim says you could split it. Mishnah says Tzarchi and Gadol if you could split it. He brings a shtickle raya if it's mashma from Talmud Rabbeinu Yonah that you could, but it's Mesupik. But certainly, that's if you have a negative kavanah. If you have no kavanah, pashtus is your yotzei. But the best thing would be, if you remember before you started it, have in mind beferish to be yotzei with Avarabba. In other words, you're already holding. So again, the case either that you're already holding in Birchas Kriyashma and you can't be masik now to say Birchas Hatorah, so have in mind with Avarabba, or even if you're holding earlier, but you have a suffix, you're not sure if you said Birchas Hatorah or not, and there's nobody around to be motzi you at that point, so then have in mind that you're going to be Yotzei with Avarabba. Now, the reason why we don't simply do this, one of the reasons why we don't simply do this every morning, so why do I have to say Birchas Hatorah separately? Okay, it's very nice, but assuming I'm going to daven right away, okay, people will come in and learn, Baruch Hashem, we have a large, we call Kollel Boker, in many places now, it's Gavaldik that many people are learning before davening. So of course then, they're going to have to say Birchas Hatorah anyway, they can't wait for Avarabba. But if a person's coming in and is going to daven right away, so why does he have to say Birchas Hatorah? We're normally not marba bebrachas. Normally we yotzei with as few brachas as we can. But the answer is, or at least one good answer is, that there's a big shaila about saying even saying Psukkah de Zimra. Psukkah de Zimra is also Divrei Torah. If you were to say Tehillim, if you want to say Tehillim before davening, you definitely have to say Birchas Hatorah first. Birchas Hatorah is necessary for any form of learning, any form of articulating learning at least. Meaning Torah Shabbat, Torah Shabbat, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, Torah Shabbat Peh, Mishnah, Gemara, Agada, Medrash, Halacha, whatever it is, all needs Birchas Hatorah. So if you take it to Tehillim and you would say the Halalukas, or say Tehillah LeDavid, or take it to Sefer Divrei Hayamim and say the Kapitlach that are here from Vayvarach David, Avanda you have to say Birchas Hatorah first. The only thing is, if it's being said Derech Tefillah v'Tachnunim, not Derech Limud, Derech Tefillah, so that's why it's a Shaila, and that Shaila is addressed in Siman Mem Vav, the Siman before Birchas Hatorah, Siman Mem Vav, the last Sif test. The Mechaber brings two days about that. And it comes out, the bottom line is the minig is to try to be nizar, always to say Birchas Hatorah before you say learning, even before you say Divrei Torah, even derech tachnunim. So like Lamashal during Slichas, you should say Birchas Hatorah before Slichas. Or really every day when you get to shul, you're supposed to say, before you walk in, you say Matov Olech Yaakov. You should say Birchas Hatorah first. And when you put on your talis and tefillin, many people say Psukim, Barchi Nafshi, or Mayakar Chazdecha, or Veirastichli. These are all Psukim. So it's definitely a preference a preference to say Birchas Torah before any of that, before you say Divrei Torah. So therefore, we don't wait for Hatorah to say Birchas Torah, we say it beforehand. And that's why also, I believe that is why, even if you're in the middle of Psukkah de Zimra, it's Kedai to be mafsik. Mishnah says you're allowed to, I mentioned before, it's Kedai to be mafsik, to say Birchas Torah if you remember that you didn't say it, and you for sure chayiv, no suffix, I just forgot, I didn't say it. So stop and say Birchas Torah in the middle of Psukkah de Zimra and then go up. Okay, yes?
What's the ideal time to say Birchas Torah? When you should?
So the best thing is, I mentioned briefly before, is write it when you wake up in the morning, and you take care of your needs, personal needs. Come in and wash your hands. Best thing is say Asher Yatzar, and really it's best to say Elokai Neshama right away. Maybe discussion for a different time, and then Birchas Torah. And hopefully we'll talk about why it's good to say it right away. Don't even wait till you get to the to your base medrash to learn. Well, Mr. Shema, hopefully have time to go on.
I think one of the questions is what time is it? You wake up, you go to sleep.
Oh. Okay. So
4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, is that what you meant? Okay, so I'll try to.
So, I feel that my ideal time is when I get to shul.
Okay, no, I think you meant my question. I think the question.
If I had that question.
Okay, fine.
What is the time?
Okay, okay, we'll try to get as much as we can. And the reason why ideally you should say Birchas Torah right away is that although the Shulchan Aruch paskins that if you're not articulating the words, you're just thinking and learning, you don't have to say Birchas Torah. That is the psak of the Mechaber, Sif Dalid. But it's a big machlokas. The Vilna Gaon holds differently. The Vilna Gaon holds that you have to say Birchas Torah even to think and learning. So a Yid should be thinking and learning, and you probably are. You're probably thinking and learning. I don't mean necessarily thinking about a difficult Rashba or the Mahalach of the Ksos and the Suya. If you are, Ashrecha B'Tovla. But even if you're not thinking that, very likely some degree of Limud Torah, and it's good to be margul a person, to be margul yourself. It's a gewaldige thing to be margul your mind, to be thinking and learning on some level whenever you can. So it's good to say Birchas Torah right away, so that you could be Yotzi L'chol HaDeis, not just to feed the Psak of the Mechaber, but Yotzi even to feed the Gra. So let me just go back to the point, then maybe I'll try to address what you asked. So Ava Rabbi Yotzi for sure. The only thing is, as the Mechaber says, Im Lamad Miyad V'lo Hefsik. You have to learn right away afterwards, because I mentioned before Birchas Torah has to be followed by learning. And even though I said before, it's a bit of a suffix if you didn't, whether Yotzi, but by Ava Rabba for sure you have to learn. You have to learn right away. What does it mean right away? You're in the middle of davening. You can't finish Ava Rabba and then say your own Divrei Torah. You have to follow what it says in the Siddur. So it means right as soon as you can, meaning even at the end of davening, even if it's at the end of the davening, that would be fine, as long as you don't talk in between. Then okay, so what about Kriya Shema? So the Mechaber says Yesh l'stapek, Sivches, Yesh l'stapek, if reading Kriya Shema is enough. Why is it a suffix? Because it's Divrei Torah, no question about it. But you're saying it for a different reason. You're not saying it to be Yotzi learning. You're saying it to be Yotzi, the mitzvah of Kabbalah Samach HaShamayim, and all the mitzvahs that come along with Kriya Shema. So that's why it's a suffix if you are Yotzi with Kriya Shema. Now, Mishnah Berurah says, first of all, he says, L'maisa, it's mashra from many that you are, that you're not. He brings from the Bir Agra and from the Eli Rabbah that many hold you're not Yotzi with that, and therefore you really should be nizar to say to do some real learning, whether it's Yivarech Hashem Yishmecha, but as soon as you can, as soon as you're allowed to be mafsik after Tachnun, maybe just say it so you won't forget, or if you didn't, at least right after davening, say some learning. But
according to the Kollel, would you be also thinking?
It probably would.
Or the BR
Yes, probably would. Except that we know the Mechaber, we're not Samech El Kula. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah does say though that if you're saying Kriya Shema, if you're davening at a time when you're not Yotzi Kriya Shema, it's definitely too early. And for Mara, for example, or it's too late Shachas, you said Kriya Shema before davening, it's still Zman Tefillah, but you already passed my Kriya Shema, you're just repeating Kriya Shema because it's part of davening, then he says it's more pashtus as you could be Yotze, because then you say it more B'Torah's Limud Torah.
Are you saying that learning, to have the chiyuv of Birchas Torah only when you're saying learning out loud? If you open up a sefer and learn from the sefer without speaking the words.
You mekayim the mitzvah. No, okay, let's be clear. You mekayim a mitzvah, the mitzvah of a gisa b'yom v'layla, lo yomish sefer Torah zemi picha, or v'shinantam l'panecha. Various mitzvahs of limud Torah you're yotze even without articulating the words, but you are not necessarily chayiv in Birchas Hatorah on that. So therefore, if you want the bracha to be chal, you should do something that requires the bracha, which according to the Mechaber is only articulation, only enunciating the words. That's really what you're touching on. That's the Vilna Gaon's whole point. The Vilna Gaon's point is that the mitzvah is not just talking. The mitzvah is right. Even though here alav kedibur dami, thinking is not like speaking. But if you think and learning, you're still mekayim mitzvah. That's the Vilna Gaon's point. But nevertheless, the Mechaber holds you're still not chayiv in learning without actually saying the words. And I do want just to be clear, it is a maila to articulate. When you're learning it, is the Gemara says that chayim heim lemotza ehem. Or lemotzi'eim, I think the darshan lemotzi'eim bepeh. Those who are motzi the words bepeh, those who articulate the words, it is a mila. Some people find they learn a lot better without doing that. I think most people are not that way. I personally am very much not that way. I learn much better when I say the words. If I don't say the words, pretty soon I'm in a different world. But anyway, it's brought that it's better. It's better. It has hashpah, and it's better to say the words. But that doesn't mean if you're thinking through a difficult sos or a rashba, and you're pacing up and down the base measure, and you're thinking about it, you get a mitzvah for every single moment, etc. Okay, now. So just to conclude this point, so if you didn't say Birchas before davening, have in mind in Ava Rabbah, learn right afterwards. If you only realized after davening was over, I realized, I never said Birchas, but I've said Ava Rabbah. So if you're still able to learn right away without a hefsek, meaning you realize it in the middle when you haven't finished all of davening, then you could do that, and we assume you're Yotze. The Mishnah versus Pashas Yotze, even though you didn't have kavanah. But if you didn't do that, you didn't have kavanah because you didn't realize, and you were mafsik right away, you were mafsik b'dibur afterwards, then you were not Yotze. Then you were not Yotze, and you would have to still say Birchas Hatorah. Okay, now the question is, at what point are you chayiv? Question I was asked, at what point do you chayiv in Birchas Hatorah? By the way, I'm sorry, before I address that, I just want to say the same thing is true in Mariv. The bracha of Avas Olam that we say, or whatever the nuscha you say for that bracha before Kriyash Mariv, you're also Yotze Birchas Hatorah. So, for example, if you're in a situation, and I think rather than just like cramming everything in, I think I'll save some of it. Michel, maybe we'll continue with next week some of these points, so I won't talk about sleeping during the day now in detail. But if you're in a situation where you have a suffix, it's nighttime, and you have a suffix if you're chayiv in Birchas Hatorah, either vaday chayiv, could potentially be, or suffix chayiv, so you should have in mind at Mariv, when you say the bracha, certainly if you have a vaday chayiv, the Mishnah Berurah clearly says, even if you're in a situation where we pass can make it there now, you're Yotze, you don't need Birchas Hatorah. But there are shitas that hold that you do need to repeat Birchas Hatorah because of whatever, you might have slept during the day, whatever it is. You should have in mind, it doesn't hurt. You can only, it only helps. Have in mind to be Yotze with that and learn something right after Mariv. And even if your day's basically over, but you put in a long day and learning and everything, and now you're going home after Mariv. But again, going home means you're not going to say another word of learning before you go to sleep. Mistama, you will. You might talk and learning somewhere or whatever it is. And besides which, you can say Kriyash Malamita, which has a lot of paragraphs, and we said Lechatchila, you should say Birchas even for that. So have in mind in Mariv, even if you think you're going to sleep right away afterwards. Have in mind in Mariv that bracha, and then say right afterwards. Okay, now let's take the case you've gone to sleep at night and you wake up, and it's you weren't planning on waking up at 4 a.m, but Kosh Baruch had other plans for you, and you wake up and you figure, okay, so take her to Sefer and we'll learn a little bit. So if you went to sleep b'kavana shinas keva amitaso, and you slept the shinas keva, you woke up long before you went, and it's still pitch black, it's before dawn, it's still night, you definitely have to say Birchas Hatorah. In that case, everyone agrees, because it was nighttime, I slept the shinas keva, meaning, let's say, call at least a half hour, al mitaso, I lie down in bed to go to sleep, I slept intentionally, planning to sleep for a real sleep, and I woke up, even though it's still nighttime, I definitely have to say Birchas Hatorah before I could learn. And so, if you lie down at the beginning of the night for a nap, let's say you come home days like this when it still gets dark, still relatively early, and you have a night seder, and you know that your chavrus is not going to appreciate it if you come to seder the way you feel, and neither are you, because you're going to sit down and in 2 minutes you're going to start, the head's going to start bobbing. So you figure, look, I'll take a quick nap. I'll take maybe a quick nap, maybe even a half hour nap or a 40-minute nap, or whatever it is. But I'll take a nap and I'll be ready to go. There are people, and a person you can gain hours of learning that way. So, but it's already dark. It's after taste. So, Pashas, when you learn the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah, it would sound like You wake up, you have to say Birchas Hatorah. It's nighttime, and you slept. The Shinas Kav Al Mitaso. And that's how some paskin. They bring from Rabbi Yashiv paskin that way. But many say not that way. Many say, and when I first learned this a number of years ago, it was a chiddush to me, because the Pashto Mishnah Berurah to me doesn't sound this way, but many say, if you were not planning on sleeping for the night, you didn't get into pajamas. You slept in your clothing. You might have slept in bed, but that's because it's the most comfortable way of sleeping. But you slept in your clothing, and you intended to get up and learn. You had no intention of sleeping for the night. Even if you slept more than a half hour, you do not say Birchas Hatorah. That's a mini paskan. That's a perfect case where you definitely want to have in mind when you get to Marav, and even if you're going to first learn something before Marav, as I said, but at least when you get to Marav, you could alleviate the suffix. So many say you don't make Birchas in that case. But the case when you went to sleep for the night, you weren't planning on getting up so quickly. You're planning on getting up much later. Even if you woke up earlier, you definitely have to say Birchas Hatorah. So now, you said Birchas Hatorah to learn. Now you're ready to go back to sleep. You learn for a little while. Now it's 4:30 and your eyes are closing, or you're ready to go back to sleep. And it's still before Rosh Hashachar. Before Rosh Hashachar, and Rosh Hashachar is 6 o'clock, let's say. It's approximately what it is now. And you sleep an hour and a half, and before daybreak. So do you have to say Birchas Hatorah again? I just said it 2 hours ago. So according to the Mishnah Berurah, the answer is yes. The Mishnah Berurah says, Mistama, your kavana at 4 a.m. was only to be motzi yourself until you go back to sleep. A shinas keva al mitaso b'layla. So you did it again. Meaning you did another shinas keva al mitaso. So according to the Mishnah Berurah, you say Birchas Hatorah again in the morning. There are those who hold differently. I heard there were Michel held that you don't do that. You only say it once every 24 hours, and there are others that hold that way. But I'll feed the Mishnah Berurah, you do have to say, you say it not only when you wake up at first, at 4 a.m, but you have to say it again when if you go back to sleep, if it's still night. If by the time you go back to sleep, it's already day, it's already Rosh Hashachar, or just a few minutes before Rosh Hashachar, and you basically slept, you did not sleep a Shinas Kav at night, then you would be in the shaila of brachas during the day, which is the whole different shaila, which, as I said, I'll try to save for the next time. But okay, so
what about the person that wanted to chop a half hour nap so he could learn with his chavrusa, and then it's 7 a.m. So
he slept. The fact that in that case it was a shiras kevel l'chol hadeyas. I mean, even though now, and also it doesn't dafka have to be in bed. L'mashal, it's quoted from Rabbi Yashiv, and I actually heard this from him as well, personally, that if you take a flight at night, you're flying to Eretz Yisrael through the night, and you do your best to sleep. You intentionally, put your seat back as far as it'll recline, close your eyes with the intention of trying to sleep for whatever you can, a few hours. Then if you slept a half hour, that way you definitely have to say Birchas Hatorah. That's called Shinas Keva Al Mitasa. That's good. It doesn't have to be your bed dafka. It could be, it means that you intentionally put yourself into the most comfortable position you can get, let's just say, as opposed to if you slept on the table all night, that would not be pashut. But if you slept in a reclining type of fashion, in the whatever comfortable fashion you were able to accomplish, then that would definitely require Birchas Hatorah.
Is it better to have in mind at 4 o'clock in the morning when you make Birchas Hatorah that if I fall asleep that you count, or it's not going to help you, Mr. Berurah?
Yeah. I don't think it's better to have that in mind because. If you end up sleeping a shinas keva at night, then it's not so pashut. So no, I don't think it's Okay, so now let me just pick up 1 or 2 points because I do want to, like I said, I think I just save a couple of things for next time. So let me just go back to we mentioned. I'll just share with you a ma'isa because I think it's a shmaka ma'isa that has to do with. When you make Birchas Hatorah, the Maisa is told, and I think I've heard this from a number of sources and seen it, so hopefully it's accurate or fairly accurate. And that was it was in the time of Chaim Brisker. Chaim Brisker was the Rosh Yeshiva at a certain point of the Volozhiner Rosh Yeshiva. One of the earlier Rosh Yeshivas, founding Rosh Yeshivas, or one of the earlier Rosh Yeshivas was his wife's grandfather, the Nitziv Mivolozhin, was Rosh Yeshiva, and then Rabbi Chaim married his granddaughter. He married a daughter of Rabbi Fal Shapiro, was a son-in-law of the Nitziv, actually twice. He married 2 daughters of the Nitziv. After the first one was Nifteris, he married another daughter of the Nitziv, and Rabbi Chaim was a son-in-law of Rabbi Fal Shapiro. So he was married to Nitziv's granddaughter, and he was already, at the time of the story, I think he was already Rosh Yeshiva or Maggid Shir, whatever it was. there was a big suffix in town regarding esrogim from Eretz Yisrael during Shemitah year. Whether was probably the sukkahs right after Shemitah, but esrogi Shemitah, the big shaila, whatever it was exactly detailed, but the big shaila on the esrogim, and the shaila was no, it came to a head, mamish, like I think it was on sukkahs, and they weren't sure what to do, so they've been discussing the shaila. Anyway, the Nitziv been discussing with Reb Chaim. Anyway, at all of a sudden, so Reb Chaim goes to sleep. At 3 a.m, there's a knock at the door. What is? So he opens the door, and someone's at the door and says, the Nitziv wants to see you right away. Right away. So he got very mavul. He's not feeling well. What it was. So whatever. Got dressed with him, and he went to the Nitziv's house, and comes in. He's very worried. And he sees the Nitziv looks like he's been up all night, but he looks powerful. He says, you're here. I figured it out. I have the psak. Bara, sit down. I want to tell you over. I broke through the sugya. So Chaim is very relieved. Oh, Baruch Hashem. That's what it is. Nothing bad. Gavaldig. So Chaim said, okay, Baruch Hashem, just give me a minute. I just need to say Birchas Hatorah. So Chaim gets up and or he's standing, whatever. He says Birchas Hatorah. And he says Birchas Hatorah. Here's the Tziv seems to be weeping. He seems to be crying. So he finishes Birchas Hatorah, and then he's very puzzled and says, what's wrong? He says, here's the person that we're looking at. We're hoping he's going to be mamish the next, the Gadol Dar, the Manik of Gans Klal Yisrael. 3 o'clock in the morning, and you haven't said Birchas Hatorah yet. The Tzib was disappointed in his daughter's Adam that Chaim Brisker 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I don't know the detail if it's exactly 3 o'clock, but that's whatever time you haven't said Birchas Hatorah yet. So those are the hasagas of the Tzib. It sounds like from the story he hadn't gone to sleep. He was working in the Shiloh, but okay, you went to sleep. I understand, but you should be up by now. I mean, you should be up. How are you still sleeping? Okay. In any case, so just to let me just elaborate a little bit on that one point. We have just a minute to left. Well, okay. So I'll tell you what. It's 2 minutes. Those need to have an hour. 2 minutes to 10. What I'd like to discuss next time, I'd like to discuss further the question regarding of what form of learning requires meaning in terms of articulation versus listening, which we didn't discuss yet. And I'd like to discuss the idea of sleeping during the day, whether or not that requires Birchas Hatorah, and the Rizal Hashem will try to bring up a number of other points next week.
Can you be Yotze with someone saying Abba who's having in mind to be Yotze with Birchas Hatorah, with Birchas Hatorah?
So interesting that you asked that Shaila. I probably would have said why not, but I brought down they bring down Shem and Chaim Kevsky that you can't. I didn't look up the source, so I don't know why not, but I saw Shem and Chaim Kevsky that no, you can't.
Yeah, and also the second question, if you daven Ma'ariv early, so the Avar Salim that you're saying is not for the Libra, it's not for the davening of Kriya Shema, because it's not going to be Yotze Kriya Shema. So in that case, you're using Kriya Shema as like Psukim. So can you use that to be Yotze?
Yeah, that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. It says Pshuto Shtav. In that case, you would be Yotze.
You would be Yotze, even if you didn't have it in mind. B'shas. Because you said in the morning, it depends. If you're already...
Well, even in the morning, Mishnah Berurah noted that you don't have to have in mind. So, was it...
all the other psukim after Shema.
yeah, but